Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and you are watching or listening to A Better Way with Kirsten Kimura podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you all also to all the new subscribers on YouTube. It has been super cool to see that my channel has grown recently. So thank you so much for everybody who have contributed to that. And if you like this podcast, whether you watch it on YouTube or listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you know somebody else who would enjoy this or who would benefit from these topics that I talk about here, please share because that will help the podcast to grow even more. And it's always easier for me to get the word out if you can help me with it. So once again, I really wanted to say thank you so much for your support. Today, we're going to talk about emotions and how emotions, when they go unexpressed, can cause symptoms in the body, right? And I got this idea for several reasons. One of them is that obviously I have dealt with TMS myself for many years, and it wasn't really until I started to look at this one piece which was emotions, that I started to do a lot better. Before that, I had relied a lot on this, this big message that's so common in the TMS world, which is like, you're safe, there's nothing wrong with you, you're not broken. Okay, I had done all these things, but honestly, I hadn't seen much difference from it because I knew that there's nothing wrong with me physically. So when I learned about TMS, Mind-Body Syndrome, it was clear to me that there's nothing wrong with me, like in a physical sense. So I dropped that story very quickly that, oh, I should be like babying myself. I can't do this or that. I can't go out. I can't, right? So I dropped that story immediately. But actually, obviously I did get a little bit better from it, but I didn't get much better from it. So, and it wasn't really until, let's say, end of last summer or so that I started really working a lot more with emotions. And that is something that has been causing a much bigger positive shift in me. And there are, of course, some other things too that I didn't pay attention to before because I feel like some of the things are not being talked about a whole lot when you get like chronic physical symptoms and it's TMS, right? Like, so a lot of people, like I said, are focusing on the fact that you're okay. I'm like, I already know I'm okay, right? So this is not helping me. What is the missing piece? So I started working a lot more with emotions and discovered a lot of interesting things. And I also started learning a lot more about how my personality traits are contributing to the symptoms that I had and / have. And lastly, like the amount of stress, the pressure that I put on myself, and how to reduce that, especially when it comes to work, especially when it comes to checking social media and all that. So I'm going to leave the personality traits for another episode. I'm also going to leave the stress and workaholism for another episode. And today I want to talk about emotions. Now, I already obviously mentioned TMS, right? So I'm going to talk a lot more about it on this podcast, not only in today's episode but overall. But you might be thinking, okay, I don't have TMS, like I don't have these chronic symptoms. But the thing is that so many people do, they just don't actually realize it. And I don't want to say like, yes, you do have it, like everybody has it. No, I don't think that everybody has it necessarily. But if you have been feeling like these little things coming on here and there, like, yeah, I go like through periods of time when I'm having this alternating like constipation and diarrhea. For like 1 month I have it all the time. And then things kind of settle down and then I get it again, right? Or then somebody could have like neck pain, right? Oh, I have this neck pain. Like every now and then it comes on and I don't know what I did. A lot of times people are like, I must have slept funny, which is like a really funny thing, I think, to say like I slept funny. Well, and now your neck is sore. Or people go into like the workouts, right? How did I do my workout wrong? What exercise did I do wrong so that I hurt my neck? And when I asked them like, okay, was it like an acute injury just came on from something that you did? Let's say you lifted something and it was like, ooh, right, it really hurt. Then yeah, probably you did something wrong. But if it kind of just came on very, very gradually and now it sits there for like a couple of weeks and then it randomly goes away and sometimes it comes back, then it's not an acute injury. It's not acute. So this is very likely a manifestation of TMS, right? Mind-Body Syndrome. So you get these things every now and then, and you maybe have not been able to put the pieces together that this thing really correlates with what's going on in your life, right? So typically you are more stressed And again, a lot of people might be saying, no, I'm not stressed, right? But I think the amount of stress that we have, we just don't realize anymore that this is not normal. We're not supposed to be that stressed. A lot of people are just living this very stressful lifestyle and not realizing that something is up. So they have this like temporary pain or stomach issue or some other thing, and then it goes away and then it comes back. So if you have this going on, then yes, look at your stress, but also look at your emotions, right? And this is what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm so glad that this topic of like TMS and emotions and pressure, how this is causing physical symptoms, I'm so glad that this is becoming bigger and bigger. More and more people are talking about it. And even in the world of like professional athletes, like high level sports, just recently I listened to Nicole Sachs' podcast. So her podcast is called The Cure for Chronic Pain. And she interviewed this NBA player, Michael Porter, and how he overcame his back pain, right, with this method that Nicole Sachs uses mostly, which is journaling. But he also mentioned that, yes, I had like a lot of this pressure going on. I was signing these big contracts, right, for like, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars. And I felt the pressure, right? And this is when he started developing these aches and pains. And he would get surgeries, right? And then he did a surgery and the issue moved on to another body part. I think it went into his leg. And then he was out for a little while again. And then he got symptoms in his back again. And it wasn't really until he started to work on this thing, right, what we're talking about today is like the emotions, the pressure, and all that. And he worked with Nicole Sachs, and he's now free from pain. And I'm so glad that this knowledge is coming out more and more, and more people are learning about it, like I said, also in professional sports. So for example, when I asked my friend, one of my best friends who is super into basketball and was a player himself too, I asked him, do you know this guy Michael Porter? He said, oh yeah, he's this super talented kid, and he was out for a while because his back was hurting all the time, but sounds like he's like healed now, cured now. And I was like, okay, do you know what healed him, what the thing was? He said, no, but I think he got surgeries, right? So I sent him the podcast, hey, listen to this, because it's not just the surgery. In fact, like the surgeries in this guy's case, Michael Porter's case, were absolutely unnecessary. They didn't do anything. And he mentioned so many times in this interview too that, you know, he has the best doctors, right? Best surgeons. He has access to these people, and none of them was able to fix his problem in his back because it was not physical, right? So no matter how good doctors you have, whatever, if the problem is coming from stress, unexpressed emotions, heightened nervous system, then no amount of surgery, no matter who does that, can fix this, because the problem is not physical. And this is what I emphasized a lot too when I talked about in the past couple of episodes about physical exercise and TMS people and highly sensitive people, and why these people are often very afraid to do physical exercise because they think, I may get more anxious, I may get more physical symptoms. Well, the problem is not physical. That's why you can't get worse from it, right? So if you do get like a new sensation or like a elevated sensation, this is because your nervous system is not used to you doing this thing, and this is just a new thing to handle. But you will have to stretch your capacity. You have to put yourself into these situations where you're challenged a little bit, right? Nothing too extreme. Doesn't have to be extreme. But I mean, if a person can recover so much that he can play like NBA level basketball, then it says that this method is really powerful. So we have to work with our emotions, with our stress and personality traits. And, you know, if it helps, a lot of people probably helps to know that there's nothing physical wrong with you, and keep repeating themselves that I'm safe. That's awesome. Like whatever gets you out of this thing is great. But I want to say one more time that for me personally, it's just like walking around repeating, I'm safe. It just didn't, I mean, I might as well like use the word like table, or I don't know, whatever, right? Flower. It didn't matter because I already knew, yeah, I am safe. So this didn't really do the thing for my brain. I really had to look at my emotions and stress and personality traits. Okay, so emotions, how do they then cause these symptoms in the body? Well, emotions are feelings. So when you think about it, yeah, how do you feel? Oh, I feel sad, or I feel angry. But if you don't express these things, if you don't what's called process these things, then they come out as physical feelings, right? So for example, in my case, back pain was just an unexpressed anger, or unexpressed sadness, or a combination, or something else, right? I'm just giving you an example. So if you don't express, then it starts grabbing your attention in a different way, in a physical way. And this is where most people automatically think, oh, I gotta go see a doctor, I gotta go see a PT, I gotta go see a chiropractor. We think that everything that manifests physically is physical. There's a physical reason for it. But it's not. Like, I think in this Western world, we really lack this understanding how much what happens in our heads, in our minds and hearts, like how much this is just, you can tell, like, based on how your body feels, right? So if you're always feeling like down and negative, right? Negative, sad, frustrated, then your body is not feeling amazing. So pay attention to that. How are your symptoms or sensations correlated with your mood and how you're feeling inside, and what emotions you are experiencing? And if you add to that with like more negativity and more like frustration, and like kind of like, oh, I'm never going to get better, then it's going to get worse. Your body going to feel worse too. So coming back to emotions also, so those feelings in the body, like the back pain, the hip pain, the diarrhea, constipation, alternating, these things are often, and chronic fatigue is very, very common, double vision, dizziness, all these things are often unexpressed emotions, right? Like I said, you don't express it like verbally or written, or you don't speak up, then the stuff is just like, okay, I'm gonna show you that you haven't been doing something, or something is not aligned, right? Like, I'm gonna start causing this little bit of pain in your neck, so that maybe you're gonna start speaking up and expressing your emotions, right? This is literally what it is. This is how it works. And if you're like, oh, this can't be, and I know there's so many people who are like, oh, this can't be, give it a little thought. Maybe try out a couple of things that I'm going to talk about today. And just last year, actually, I had this interesting story with somebody who had, this constant hip and back pain. And I knew her personality is like very sensitive person, highly stressed, and had like a lots of trauma in the recent past, like very traumatic divorce, and trouble with kids, and the relationship with the ex and all that stuff. And you can just tell, like, I know now, because I know myself, right? And I know a lot of people, I can just tell like a mile away if somebody has like a good chance of developing these issues, or if they already have this issue. I'm like, yeah, this is your stress. So anyway, I told her, your heating pad is not going to help you for very long. Your stretching is not going to help you for very long. I mean, if you want to do yoga, this is really great, right? Do it. Just like I say, do strength workouts, but they're not going to fix your physical problem, right? So not physical, but like coming from the brain, right? So you can't like strengthen your muscle and take the TMS pain away, or you cannot like stretch your psoas and take your TMS pain away. So you still have to target the emotional portion of it. So anyway, I told her all that, and she's like, nah, can't be. Okay, I believe that some people have it. I believe that sometimes your neck can get sore when you're more stressed, but this is not me. I'm different. I'm going to get a lot of help from my heating pad. I just have to take it with me everywhere. I just have to continue doing my yoga, all these things, right? And then a couple months later, she had found, or somebody had given her John Sarno's book, which I had also mentioned to her, but she finally had read it, and she texted me and she said, hey, my pain is gone. And I was like, what did you do? Oh, I found this guy, John Sarno, and he had this book. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm glad you got it, right? And this was it, right? It was just like maybe the way I presented it at the time didn't land with her, but somebody else presented it different than it did land with her. So however it happened, it doesn't matter. I'm glad that she got help. But this is just one example of like, we can say, oh, that's not me, or I get it that everybody else, yes, has like a little hip pain when they get stressed, but I'm different. My thing is real. My thing is actually physical. I need my heating pad 24/7. A lot of people say that, but what if we gave it a little chance and try out, like, if the methods of like stress reduction, emotional awareness, and adjusting some of your behaviors, like when it comes to like interactions with other people, if these will bring you some relief, and a lot of times they do. Okay, so let's talk about what emotions a lot of times start causing these sensations in the body. And of course, they're called mostly like negative emotions, right? So if somebody's like happy or really joyful, feeling like really light, they probably don't have these symptoms, right? Because positive emotions don't do that. Positive, like, we're meant to actually feel good and free and light and positive, right? And so when we do, then our bodies feel the same. But if we have things like lots of like anger that is unexpressed, or sadness, or fear, or shame, then these things, when they go unexpressed, they start grabbing our attention by causing us these symptoms that feel in the body. So let's talk about anger first. So a lot of people might say that, no, I definitely don't have anger, right? This can't be it. And I thought the same thing, right? A lot of people would say, oh, you're so mellow and so kind of easygoing. And yeah, like outwardly I was, and then inside actually there was anger. I just did not know that because I was kind of out of touch. And it really wasn't until I started working with somebody and he started showing me like how anger actually shows up. And asking about like a couple of situations in my past, like, okay, what happened there? Did it make you feel angry? I'm like, no, not really. He's like, okay, this situation should really make you feel angry. And I just didn't allow myself to feel it, or I just wasn't in touch with it. Or a lot of times I think I was also like people pleasing. Let's say that somebody did something that I didn't like and made me feel like, I didn't prefer that, but I didn't want to get angry because I was people pleasing. I was like, if I get angry, I'm going to hurt the other person, right? So I'm not gonna, right? So like a lot of examples, for example, with my ex-boyfriend, like so many situations where actually inside I was angry, but I was numbing it down so much because on some level I felt like my thoughts are not worth expressing and I'm not supposed to get mad at him. So I just didn't. My main thing was just like passive aggressive, kind of quiet, and like saying a few words and being kind of like bitchy, but not saying out loud what made me angry, and not acknowledging that, yes, I am pissed right now. I never did that. I haven't done it for so many years that I had lost this connection with the feeling of anger. And sometimes I would get, obviously, right, if it's something really like annoying happening, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's so annoying, right? It would say that out loud, but I didn't let myself like to feel it in the body. I didn't recognize how some situations that really were worth getting angry at, I just numbed it down, right? And for me, it was largely like a repression, which means that it wasn't even like a conscious decision always that, okay, don't say anything. I think maybe at first it was, that then later on it came like just like a natural thing. And that's like repression. You don't even know that you're doing it. So anger is one of these things. And when I started working with my coach, and he said, okay, you gotta like start seeing, even if there's like a small signs of anger, let's say like it's like you're slightly irritated or you're a little bit agitated. Actually, these are forms of anger and you have to acknowledge them. You have to like say, yeah, it does make me angry right now, right? And when you say this thing out loud, it actually releases the pressure internally, and you're going to feel better versus not saying this thing out loud and then continuing to build that pressure. And that's the pressure that's going to hurt you. The other thing is sadness, right? So sadness can be trapped also in the body. So if you don't express it, then you're just going to have this continuous like very heavy feeling, right? Heavy. Everything's kind of like hard. You feel like weighed down. I had like sometimes this feeling like I have like this really big rock sitting in my back, right? That's I think this was like like a sadness sensation. It's just like heavy, weighed down, right? And that too, like you gotta let it out. A lot of people have learned to keep it in because they've maybe learned when they're little, like, oh, don't cry, right? How many times do we say that to kids? Like they lose their toy or something and they cry their eyes out and you're like, oh, don't cry, it's okay. And the kid can take it like, oh, I'm not supposed to cry, like, is that bad in some way? Or maybe we learned it from parents that say that, a parent was like sad all the time for some reason. Maybe they were going through their own traumas or something. And then we just see that sadness and we don't want to be like this. Or we may also feel like I don't want to cause more harm to my parents by getting sad too, right? So this is going to be like extra hard on them. So I don't want to contribute to that. So this is how you can start hiding your sadness as well. So when you get sensation of sadness, and then you may be also like fighting back your tears, you might be like, no, don't cry. Actually, just recently I talked to a friend and she was like getting kind of emotional at the end of our call about something personal that was going on. And she said, I hope I'm not going to cry now. I can't, I'm not going to cry right now. And this is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. Like if you feel like this sensation, okay, my eyes are getting watery, my face is kind of getting like, the feeling of like when tears want to come out, like face is getting a little hot. then just let it out. It's the worst thing if you keep it in and push it in. It's the pressure cooker that happens inside you if you do that. So you got to let that out. And that's something that I've gotten so much better at. Like I had a lot of trouble with that. Just couldn't get the sadness out. I didn't, again, like in kind of denial that I had that. And then now actually I can start crying, like if something happens, if something moves me, like negative, positive. I guess positive is more like this feeling of awe, right? But then the sad things too. And the tears just start coming out a lot easier, and I no longer see it as a sign of like weakness or something. It's like, okay, yeah, that's something that has to come out. It's normal, it's natural. A lot of people cry, and it's not a bad thing. So recently, one of the things that honestly got me crying was when I read an Instagram post, and the post was about being the good daughter, right? That was the title. The good daughter always ... right? And I recognized myself in so many points. So basically, let's say that you had another sibling who was like more like a fierce and did like crazy stuff and got in trouble and caused the parents a lot of problems, right? And then you as a good daughter were like, oh, I can't do that. This is going to end really well. I have to be really good. I have to take care of others' emotions, make sure that they don't get pissed or irritated or sad or any of these, right? I have to bring home really good grades. I have to go to these piano classes that I secretly hate, but I can't say. You were never the problem kid, right? And that was me. Like my mom has told me that, oh, I never had any problems with you. Like you're such a good kid. But then did I like all these things that I was kind of forced to do and I did, such as I mentioned like piano lessons? Oh no, I really hated it, but I didn't ever say it out loud, right? Because I had to keep it in. Don't show your anger, be the good girl, do as you've been told to do, right? So did I like that? No. Did I like the math classes? I fucking hated it. Now I say I fucking hated it. And I just did it. I went, I had a tutor. Actually, tutor was like my good friend, but she was like really good. And she would teach me. Same thing with like chemistry. My high school boyfriend, like he would like teach me, but I hated math and chemistry and physics. I just could not handle these things. Like if it were up to me, I would have learned all the languages you can get. I would have done art. I would have read books. So this is what I wanted to do, right? But like I think that's another different topic. But I think in our society overall, like the school, like the restrictions that it puts on us, like it basically takes out all the individual like creativity. It tells us basically to stop dreaming, imagining, like living in your wonder world. Like you can't do that, right? Because life is hard and you have to like do these like hard skills and you have to know how to do math. And I'm like, where did I ever need any of these things that I learned in math class? I mean, if those kids who like it, they want to do it, I think it's perfectly fine. And that's in line with what they want to do. And I think we should encourage that, right? So they love it, let them do it. But for me, like I didn't like these things and I had to get tutoring, and I still had really good grades because I forced myself to get the tutoring. But at the same time I was like grinding. I was hating it, and I didn't want to do this, but I was the good daughter, right? Who would always bring home the good grades and never cause any trouble, get everything done on time, have like straight A's. It's just the post that I read and it resonated so well with me that I started to have like so much compassion for myself, and so much almost like I think it is compassion is the best word here. I just started crying because I realized like how much I forced myself to do things that I didn't like just so that I can be the good daughter, right? And it didn't serve me. Like that's why I feel like I pushed down a lot of the emotions, and that's how I ended up later on in my life with like anxiety, depression, physical pain. And this definitely contributed to all that. All right, so one little ranty here on the topic of sadness, but basically this is what happened, and this is one of the signs how I feel like, okay, now I can express my anger and express my sadness. Like when I feel sad, I feel like, oh my god, I feel so bad for this little girl who had to do all these things only so that she doesn't cause any inconvenience to anybody. Then it just made me so sad for that little girl who was me. Okay, then the next thing is fear, right? So fear is one of the emotions that typically comes out as anxiety, right? And I did an anxiety podcast some time ago. I'm going to link to that as well. So the difference between fear and anxiety is that fear is real, right? So if you are threatened by somebody on a dark street, Yes, fear, this is place for fear, but anxiety is just fake fear, right? You don't have any real threat or danger, but your nervous system might be so amped up and so heightened all the time that it may feel to you as though everything is dangerous. That's why you get like racing heart, right? That's why you get like dizziness. That's why you may have like double vision. Everything feels scary to you. And again, you may not have thought about it in these terms specifically, but this is oftentimes like a fear, anxiety response, right? You're just like so fearful of a lot of things. Many things cause anxiety, but we just have to tell ourselves, hey, this is anxiety, and sit with it and get through it this way, not letting the brain take over and tell you this is horrible, you have to be afraid, because you don't have to be afraid. So if you get the sensation of like anxiety, you get all these symptoms, and the first thing is to take a deep breath and look around you, like, is there real danger? And if there's not, then try to influence that, your conscious brain, through your conscious brain, try to influence your subconscious brain or unconscious brain that everything is okay, and breathe and relax, and you will get through it this way. Don't add fuel to that fear, right, by like catastrophizing more, thinking everything's going to shit. Don't go to social media, start scrolling. Don't text 7 million people, because that keeps you in this loop. So you have to be with this like by yourself, maybe like hand on heart, calm down, breathe calmly, and tell yourself there's nothing to be afraid of. This is just my brain causing this severe feeling of anxiety, right? So this is something that you have to work with this way. So just staying calm, allowing it to be there, not go frantic and start panicking. And again, like super familiar with that too, with this anxiety feeling. I want to say one person that I think is really, really great, and I'm going to put that in his own show notes too, is the Anxiety Guy. So he has a YouTube channel and he has a podcast. I don't think he's doing the podcast anymore, but I think he did it for about 4 years, 3 years. And he has this nice bite-sized episodes on anxiety on his podcast. So this is where I'm mostly listening to him. But I know that he's also on YouTube, and he has an Instagram channel too. So I think there's so much to learn from him. Like, he has this very like Zen vibe to him, very calm, very present. And he's also, as I'm sure you have noticed, that I am very much into fitness. He's also like a very like athletic type. He was like a high-level tennis player. So a lot of times he talks about, that stuff too, how his life was impacted by anxiety when he was playing tennis. But anyways, he's a really cool guy. So once again, check out the Anxiety Guy on YouTube, podcasts, and on Instagram as well. And then the last emotion, when we don't express it and when we don't tell it to get out of here, is shame, right? So a little bit touched on that a couple of episodes ago too. But shame is, I think, like so many people experience it, and on a daily basis. And if you started to keep track on the events, like when you feel shame, I don't know about you, but when I first started doing this work, like it was like, I don't know, every 5 minutes all the time. So shame is caused by past events, or some people have told you something, or something happened in the past that made you feel like you are not good enough, right? Not that what you did was like wrong, or you could have done better. It's like you are bad or wrong, something really wrong about you. So I had a lot of instances of that too, like some related to, my body weight when I was, I don't know, it was like a couple of years into college when I gained a lot of weight. Then some things that were told to me, like they just stuck into my head, and I just felt so shameful, and that, I'm sure, caused a lot of these body image issues that I had down the line later on. I had a lot of them, which if you want to go back in this podcast and listen to them, there's a lot of stuff that I did. I started severely overtraining and undereating, and caused myself a ton of hormonal issues, lost my period for 10 years straight. And I think this was all coming from low sort of self-worth, which was then caused by shame, right? Somebody had mentioned something really like bad, and then you took it to heart and let it get into your head, and you started doing all the things because you felt so ashamed of yourself. So this is what happened. And I know that for a lot of people, somebody drops a comment, they're so confident, they're like, I don't give a shit, right? Whatever, say what you want. But if you are already a highly sensitive person, you're struggling with self-worth, like I was in my early 20s when this happened, then you just let these comments cause this huge amount of shame, and you go to work so that nobody can harm you anymore with these comments, right? And like I said, in my case was like severe fat loss and weight loss to the point where it wasn't healthy anymore, and just, you know, my life was very much impacted by it many years after that. So this is one way how shame could show up. Other ways how it could show up is like when you look at yourself in relationships, are you pushing yourself and your own needs down just to meet somebody else's? Do you feel like your thoughts, expressions, your feelings are not worth expressing because you feel like somebody else is better? Or if yours are different than other people's, you start doubting yourself, like, oh, I guess nobody else thinks that way, so I shouldn't either, I'm wrong. You don't have self-trust, so if you have to make a decision, then you text like 5 or 10 people to ask their opinion, and then you ruminate. Like, this is also coming from shame, because you're like, I'm gonna make a wrong decision, oh my god, then that means that I'm weird, I'm broken, I'm on some level like flawed, so I can't let that happen, so I have to make sure that everybody in the world is on board with this decision, right? This is very shame based. This is very like so like low self-worth based, and shame is something that you do want to catch. You do want to catch it, and like I said, at first when you start catching it, it may be like so new to you. You're probably going to miss half the times, to be honest. But every time you have negative self-talk, this inner critic comes out, every time this is manifestation of shame. So if you can catch at least some of them, you're making progress. So some time ago, I did a post on Instagram where I talked about how this inner critic and shame are showing up for people with TMS and highly sensitives when it comes to strength training, and they believe that they cannot do it, right? So the inner critic can use shame to tell you these things, such as, you're not going to follow through, you're weak, you're going to get hurt, this is not going to be good for you, who are you to do this, you've never been athletic. So all this BS is just your inner critic telling you things that are bad about you, wrong about you. It uses shame to keep you stuck in where you are right now, but you're not happy where you are right now. So you have to stand up and say, hey, I'm not taking this conversation is over, right? So this is what you have to start doing with your shame. It shows up so many times during your day. If you start paying attention, every time you're doubting yourself, you're second guessing, you're needing validation, you can't make a decision yourself. You write a post and delete it 7 times. You write an email and you can't send it until like 2 hours later because you keep fixing all these possible things. These are all like coming out of fear that you're going to do something wrong and you're bad and you're mistaken and you're weird and you're going to get rejected and all that stuff. So you have to just start noticing shame and say, hey, I'm not going to read this email for the 5th time anymore. I'm going to send it. Like, how bad can it really be? You probably already thought about it deeply and thoroughly when you were writing it. So if you write a post on Instagram and you're thinking, oh my God, did I put the comma right? Oh my God, I didn't put the comma right. Oh my goodness, right? You just have to like post and move. Just go do the next thing. If you find like you need to make a decision and you have to text like 5 people and ask, should I do this? Should I not do this? And you're just basically like word vomiting this thing out on other people, because you need like this validation, then you're just going to tell yourself, okay, this is shame, wants my attention, wants me to second guess myself. Guess what? I'm not going to do it. So bye. I'm going to just make this decision by myself. I'm not talking about like a buying, like, I don't know, like an expensive car or, you know, something that's, I don't know, worth like thousands of dollars, right? This is what you probably want to discuss with somebody like your spouse or your family members or something, right? But if it's like a small thing, like, can I post this thing? Or can I buy this pair of leggings? Or which book should I read next? This is the decision you can make yourself, right? Don't let the shame get on the way and tell you that you can't, because you can. You're a lot stronger. You just have to pay attention to shame and start rejecting it. Just kicking it out of I can't say like kicking it out of your life completely. It's always going to be there. The only type of people who don't have shame are narcissists, right? So everybody else has shame, and we have to like recognize it, we have to pay attention to it, and we have to tell it to leave. Bye. And so when you start reducing shame, also you start noticing that you are becoming more confident, because it leads you to do more empowering things. When you are more confident, when you have denied shame, right? Bye, get out of here. Then your body starts to feel better too. So all of these things that I mentioned today, like expressing your anger, right? Even just saying things out loud. I'm angry right now. Letting the sadness come out. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. You don't have to do stuff alone. If you have a lot of anxiety, how to work with that. Just be with it, let it be there, accept it and feel it. And then shame, this is something that you're not gonna like accept, right? Like, okay, you're gonna tell me that I'm a loser, I'm gonna be a loser then. No, not like that. But with shame, you have to be like, it's like have this sense of empowerment, like, hey, no, you're out, right? So these are the 4 big emotions that I found that you really have to get more familiar with, start noticing when they show up in you, and then work with them. And a lot of times you notice if you have these like anxiety sensations and physical aches and pains and GI issues and dizziness and tightness and all that stuff, when you start asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? And then working with that emotion, then these physical sensations in the body also start to really cool off and go away. So this was today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. So if you haven't done my 14-day course yet, Strong and Sensitive, then make sure that you have that course and work through it as quickly or slowly as you need to. So this is a 14-day course for highly sensitive people and people with TMS, and it combines mindset tools. So you hear things like similar to today, but not only about emotions. I think there's only actually a couple of days that are about emotions, but a lot of the other things are about personality traits, standing up for yourself, people pleasing. And then also in the same course we combine all that, the mindset tools, with also strength training. So I actually give you strength training workouts to try out if you want to give strength training a try. And as you know, I'm a big fan of that, and I think that a lot of highly sensitive people will benefit from it. If you didn't see the last episode yet where I talked with Melissa Morales, check that out too, because she's a highly sensitive person and she's also a high level of Olympic weightlifter. So super inspiring story. I know you're going to love it if you are an HSP. So definitely take a look at that as well. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. Let me know in the comments what you thought about today's episode, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.